The Furniture of the Sanctuary, Part 12, compiled by Shirley Jean Street and read by Wayne T. Street. In the evening, as we review the work of the day and find it marred by sin, there is blessed comfort as we kneel confessing our sins, to know that in heaven the fragrant incense of Christ's righteousness will be added to our prayers. If we realize more fully the privilege of prayer, we will often say with the prophet, "I will greatly rejoice in the Lord, for he has clothed me with the garment of salvation. He has covered me with the robe of righteousness." Isaiah 61, verse 10. Not all prayers that are accepted before God are answered immediately, as it would not always be best for us. But every prayer to which the fragrance of Christ's righteousness has been added is lodged on heaven's altar, and in God's good time will be answered. John saw those who officiated before the throne of God holding in their hands vials full of incense, which he said were prayers of saints. Revelation 5, verse 8. These prayers had been accepted, for the added incense was so fragrant that John said the vials were full of incense. In the typical work, the one who attempted to use the fragrant perfume of the incense for his own use was cut off from among the people of God. There was to be no imitation of the incense. Exodus 30, verses 37 and 38. As in the type, the cloud of incense shielded the priests. Leviticus 16, verse 13. So Christ's righteousness will cover the mistakes of the day, and the Father, looking upon us, will behold only the spotless robe of Christ's righteousness. No fire was to be used for burning the incense except that taken from the altar before the Lord. Nadab and Abihu, while under the influence of strong drink, offered strange fire before the Lord and were slain. Leviticus 10, verses 1 to 10. Their fate is an object lesson of all who fail to appreciate the perfect righteousness of Christ and appear before the Lord clothed in the filthy rags of their own righteousness. Isaiah 64, verse 6. When the plague was smiting the host of Israel, Aaron the high priest put incense on the censer and ran among the people, and the plague was stayed. Numbers 16, verses 46 to 48. The sacred incense was burned only on the golden altar and in the censers of the priests. The other Levites were not allowed to burn it. Numbers 16, verses 3 to 35. The priests who performed the work which typified Christ's work in a special sense were the only ones who could burn incense before the Lord. The horns of the golden altar were often touched with the blood of the sin offering, thus typifying that it was Christ's death that made it possible for our prayers to be answered and for us to be clothed in his righteousness. As the fragrance of the incense was not confined to the sanctuary, but was carried in the air to the surrounding neighborhood, so in like manner, when one is clothed with Christ's righteousness, an influence will go out from him, which those that come in contact with him will recognize by its fragrance as of heavenly origin. Then we have the type meeting the antitype. Exodus 30, verses 1 to 3, and Exodus 40, verse 26. The golden altar was before the veil. Revelation 8, verse 3. There is a golden altar in heaven before the throne of God. Exodus 30, verses 7 and 8. Incense was burned on the golden altar by the high priest every morning and evening. Revelation 8, verses 3 and 4. Much incense is added to the prayers of all saints, and they then ascend before God. In Exodus 30, verse 9, and Leviticus 10, verses 1 to 9, The one who should burn incense with strange fire was to be destroyed. Isaiah 64, verse 6, one clothed with his own righteousness will be destroyed.